All right, we'll get started. Well, happy Friday, everyone, and thank you for joining our final Maximo Friday webinar for the month of September. We'll have a new schedule coming out for October shortly. I'm Tina Scott with IBM, and along with me leading our supply chain webinar today, we have Lacey Rodabaugh, and she'll be taking us through a demonstration. And we also have Donna Grant on the line, and she will be responding to questions that you can send over the chat. If you look at the participant screen on your right-hand corner, you'll see a bubble. If you click on that, you'll be able to send a question and send it to all. And again, Donna will monitor those and reply to them. We will save time at the end where we'll take questions as well, and I'll open up the phone lines. We are recording today's presentation, and I will make that available to everyone early next week. So at this time, I will turn this over to Lacey.
Thanks, Tina. Hey, everyone, and thanks for joining me on Friday. I have a lot that I want to go through today. When we say supply chain, that's a pretty generic topic. There's so much functionality in Maximo and so many different scenarios that we could do in a demo. So I want to get through as much as I can. I'm not going to ask for any questions throughout because Donna is in the chat, but like Tina said, I will try to save 10 minutes or so at the end. Before we jump into Maximo, I just want to look at a few slides, and many of you on the call have probably already seen these slides. This is what we lead with a lot of Maximo presentations. What I want to point out, though, on this slide, in this wheel, this is really the different pillars of functionality that make up core Maximo. And when I think of supply chain, really we could do anything from within the procurement, materials, the contract management. So the scenarios that I'm going to cover will hit throughout those three. They're definitely not siloed. Everything within Maximo works together, all of the functionality to make up Maximo Asset Management, and you'll see that. Taking just a little bit deeper of a dive into those pillars, I just want to mention a few things since we won't be covering everything. Full inventory management functionality, right down to having the ability to have lotted inventory, things that expire. If you're trying to issue it out, you could see it condition enabled. So you could have different price points for inventory that was refurbished versus new, or maybe tires that have less tread. Full kitting capability, assembling and disassembling kits, being able to reserve and issue them. Within purchasing, we'll hit a lot of it. We're going to hit the purchase recs, purchase orders, receiving, and invoices. But you also have things like master data within the companies and terms and conditions and currency codes. We won't be able to hit all of that in depth today, but if you guys do want a follow-up demo, just let your sales rep know, and we can definitely go into any of the different caveats. So what I am going to do today is three different scenarios. The first will really hit across a lot of those different pillars. I'm going to do a purchasing scenario. So we'll generate demand by planning some materials on the work order. For anybody familiar with Maximo, there's other ways to generate demand as well. We have something called desktop requisitions, which is really a self-service app that can let users outside of the planning process on the work order request materials, either something to be reserved from a storeroom or something to be purchased. And then if you're familiar with the internal purchase orders or purchase requisitions, those can also generate demand as well to replenish from other storerooms. We'll look at inventory replenishment. So I won't have enough materials in my storeroom, and we'll go ahead and generate a purchase requisition, which will lead us into the sourcing in the purchasing workflow. Then we'll look at the purchase orders, and then when we approve that purchase order and we receive those materials in, we can use the receiving within Maximo to go ahead and receive the items. We can do things like inspections, create serialized parts, and we'll do that. And then the final step is the invoicing, so the payment. And then we also support the three-way matching in Maximo, so I'll point that out as we go. Something to note that I'm not going to go into too much is you don't have to use all of these pieces in Maximo. If you have an external ERP system where you're doing your purchasing, it's very common to integrate with Maximo and do some different variants on these scenarios. For example, you may just generate your requisition within Maximo, and that might go over to your ERP where you may do your purchasing activities and then you may do your receipt in Maximo, and then the invoice back in your ERP. So just keep that in mind as I go throughout. And then the next two scenarios that I want to do will be a lot quicker. This is more focused on the inventory, and I'm going to use the inventory usage app. For anybody that hasn't seen Maximo supply chain within the last couple of years, there was a lot of functionality added in 7.5, and the inventory usage app was one of them. I'll use that to go ahead and stage some parts that were requested for work, and then when the technician picks up those parts, I can go ahead and issue them out, all from a single statusable record. I can also use that same inventory usage application to ship materials or transfer materials between inventory locations. So if you have to have an intermediate location, like transit, I had to send something via UPS to another storeroom in another state, and you want to be able to track that, I can now use inventory usage to indicate that that's been shipped, and then when that's received into the receiving inventory location, I can use shipment receiving to go ahead and mark that I received that. I can do inspections and a lot of other similar things that I can do in receiving. So those are the three scenarios that we'll cover. Let's go ahead and jump in. And go ahead and let me know if anybody has any issues seeing my screen. We should now be seeing the Start Center in Maximo.
Yep, it's up.
Okay, perfect. So let's go back to the scenarios. The first thing that I'm going to do is generate the demand. So let's create a new work order. I'm going to use the quick insert from my Start Center. And let's just do something simple, and I'm going to refurbish the pump. And if anybody has seen a lot of demos, this pump is very well maintained. So let's scroll down. And I want to point out this scheduling information section because I'm going to put in a target start date. And what you're going to see is that's going to be carried over to the required dates on my materials. And that required date will really play a part when I talk about the different types of reservations and if you want to have more of a just-in-time approach for your inventory. So let's say that I need this by October 6th. Okay. And now let's come back and go over to the Plans tab. And now I can start planning what materials that I need to do this work. And for anybody familiar with Maximo, you could use a job plan if this is more templated maintenance that you do often. Maybe it's being generated from a PM or it's something that you've done before. You could grab that job plan and your materials would all populate here. Let's select from the Assets Bill of Materials. This is something that's already built on the asset record. If you don't have the bill of materials in Maximo, that's fine. Maximo could help you build it. At an item level, you could flag that to say, go ahead and add to this asset as a bill of material if I ever issue it to that. Let's just grab a couple parts here. And now let's talk through some of the different options. I can either be planning a material that I want to reserve from my storeroom, so it's something that I have in inventory. And what that will lead to is I don't have enough in my inventory. It would be a replenishment request for my storeroom. The other option is a direct issue. So this is something that I want procurement to go buy for me for this work order. So let's start with the direct issue. I'm going to go ahead and flag that. I could come down, and if I knew the vendor that I wanted or purchasing to get this from, I could fill that out. This is already filled out for me. You can have a default vendor for direct issue items, and that's what I have here. Just because I put the vendor here doesn't mean that the purchasing agent has to listen to it. They may know something that I don't when they go to actually procure it. Notice the required date. This came from me putting that target date in the scheduling information. I could come over here and override it, or I could come fill it out here as well. So maybe you need another part, you know, it's a long job and I don't need this for a week, I could change this. Now let's look at the materials that I'm reserving from my storeroom. So let's expand that here. And I'm going to, actually let's do the steel. I'm going to get this steel from the central storeroom. I'm going to leave the required date. And now let's talk about this reservation type field. This was something that was introduced in Maximo 7.5, and it allows you 3 choices. One, a soft reservation. This is more of a contingency or uncommitted reservation. I might need it to do the job, but I don't really have to have it for task completion. So I would pick soft reservation. It would not affect my available balance in the storeroom. Thus, it could not lead to triggering a replenishment if I fall below that balance. Hard reservation, it's committed. I have to have it. Affects the available balance. The third type is automatic. Now, automatic is allowing Maximo to determine whether this reservation should be soft or hard. And Maximo will do that based on the required date and your lead time to procure. So if I still have time within my window to go buy that, it's going to be a soft reservation. But as soon as I come within that window where I have to buy it and have my lead time factored in by the required date to have it, it's going to change to a hard reservation. It's going to affect the available balance. It could lead to any procurement activities if I didn't have enough at that time. So let's go ahead and click the automatic. Let's look at a few other things that I have available here. If I don't know what storeroom I want to get this from, maybe you have multiple storerooms within your site, or I might not have it in my storeroom and maybe I'm going to request a transfer from another state, I can view all of that information right from the work order. So I can say view item availability. I can see all the storerooms that this material is stocked in. I can see the available quantities, if there's anything staged, if it was lotted, like I mentioned, maybe it's a seal, so it cracks and it's expired, I could see that. All within a single dialog. Maybe if there's not any available, but there's a PO out there, I can see all my purchasing documents. If I have any alternate items, meaning that if I don't have this part, I can use this other, I could see that. And I could also see the other reservations. So if I need to borrow from somebody's work because I know that this shop is more important and it wasn't available, I have all that information to be able to look at. I can also look at images if I have any. I have a slew of ways to search for materials. Notice that I just picked from the bill of materials. If you don't have that, that's fine. I could use any of these options to go and search for the materials. I won't hit on it too much today, but if you're using the classifications with attributes in Maximo, there's many ways to search here. That's basically your engineering spec. So if I know that this is a 1-inch diameter seal, I could have that attribute for diameter, and I could go in there and I could put 1 inch and it would narrow down my list of seals to ones that match. And that's how I could start finding the correct materials that I need. All right. Still in the storeroom here. Notice a unit cost comes across. Again, this may not be the final after the purchasing activities. This is being pulled from information I'm aggregating on my inventory record from past purchases. Let's go ahead and approve the work order. Work order approval is the trigger in Maximo to create those reservations and start the purchasing activities for any direct issue items. So let's do an approval. And notice the status of the work order was waiting for approval. I approved it, and now it's waiting materials. That's something that you can control if you want to use that status or not. You can control it down to the work order level. What that waiting material means is everything I have planned there, I don't have available yet to do this job. If I look right on the work order tab in my header information, I have these fields that gives me a quick snapshot into the procurement activities if I don't have all the materials that I need. So I can see storeroom material status is complete. If I clicked on it, I could see those couple of parts that I needed from the storeroom, how many I needed, how many are available, the reservation type. I'm all set. The reservation type went to hard because I don't have enough time to reorder them before I needed them. It had a 30-day lead time, so therefore it's a hard reservation and it affected the available quantity. The reason that this is waiting materials, though, is not because of the storeroom status. because of that direct issue item, the thing that I'm saying I don't have in my storeroom, I want you to go out and buy for me. So if I look at that gasket, I need one, the no purchasing activities have started yet. So as soon as they do, though, and I start to get that PR and then that PO is generated, I'm going to have this information filled out, and it's a snapshot right from the work order. I don't need to go ask that purchasing agent, hey, where's my parts? I can look at it right from the work order. Okay, let's move over now. We've created the demand. Let's go look at inventory, look at a few fields there, and then let's run a reorder, which will generate a purchase request for me. Move over to inventory, and let's look at that gasket record. I have visibility into several storerooms that all stock that gasket, so that's when I typed the item number, why they all came up. I'm going to look at the central storeroom because that's where I did my reservation. Just glancing at the inventory to mention a few things, I have all kinds of information. I have balance information broken down into multiple ways, into multiple bins. I have some costing information, right? I have some issue history. But what I want to mention is the reorder details. If I want this item to be considered an automatic replenishment, meaning when the job to reorder things in Maximo runs, I need to have this checkbox ticked. And then how Maximo determines to reorder is if my available quantity is below my reorder point, plus any current purchasing activities I have out there, then Maximo is going to trigger a reorder. And it's going to reorder in multiples of the economic order quantity. We have reports in Maximo that can help suggest both the reorder point and the economic order quantity to you. It will factor things in like past demand over lead time to get the reorder point. You can put things like carrying costs and such to get the EOQ. And then you can choose to update those fields. So we do offer some guidance. Lead time, this comes from past purchasing. So when did I approve that PO versus when I receipted it? It can be a weighted average. So if you want to weight the most recent purchase more heavily, you can have that set up like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and run the reorder. I'm doing this manually for you, but remember this could be an automated process, something that runs in Maximo maybe overnight, and in the morning you could have all those purchase documents sitting in your queue for review and approval. Now when I reorder, a waiting for approval purchase requisition is going to be created. That's something that your company can decide what their process is. There's options where you can either have a waiting for approval or an approved purchase rec or PO created. So let's do the reorder. I'm going to run it so I can see it. Notice a couple things here. Right now, because I'm on this particular item, I'm just doing this one. I can do it for all items in your storeroom. I'm going to consider contracts when creating my purchase rec for purchase orders. I will have one that references a contract. We'll just glance at that contract. We won't go into too much, but we do support blanket, price, and purchase contracts. So let's preview it. If I was running this through my job, I could have an email with a report sent to my inbox that I could see everything that was reordered, quantities, purchase rec numbers. Okay, so notice my reorder point is 20. I really only needed so many. I didn't need 20 because I still have, I want to say 8 or so available. But because my EOQ is 10, that's the quantities that I want to order in to take advantage of the, the bulk quantity discounts or whatever it may be. So I'm reordering 20. Let's go ahead and run the reorder. This is going to generate that purchase requisition for me. So let's just jot that number down, 1035. And before I move to the purchase requisition, I will just point out there's a reorder price for those direct issue as well. So that job would run and a purchase rec would be created for those materials that I planned that there's not a reservation in inventory for. Rather, I want you to go buy that for me directly. So the end result would be also a purchase requisition or a purchase order that was waiting for approval or approved. Before we move on, there's a slew of options here. I won't have time to go through them all, but remember, if you do want follow-up, we can certainly go down these other avenues. I could do cycle counts. I could do inventory adjustments, things like that. We support consignment inventory. The one thing that I will point out is the reservations. I can come in here and I can view all of the reservations, and I can come through and filter. So if I wanted to look for reservations on a certain work order, or I'm looking for reservations needed for a certain date, so like we needed that by the 6th, I could come and I could start filtering, and I see all of that information. And then as the inventory manager, I could come in here, and if I needed to change any of the reservations, I have that authority. You'll also see this dialog accessible from a few other places. So when we actually issue some inventory later, I can pick from the same dialog of what I want to issue. So this will help you when you come in for the week. What do I need to stage? What do I need to have ready for the tech? All right, let's go over to that purchase requisition. Talk through that. Right now, this purchase requisition is, oops, let me go to 1035. This purchase requisition is waiting for approval. It is referencing ATI. The reason it's referencing ATI is because I actually had a contract for that part that I needed. So Maximo automatically picked that up. Let's just go jog and look at that contract for a second. I can see I had a contract from ATI. It's still valid. It's approved. If I look at the contract lines, I have a slew of parts that I could buy for them, and I have a negotiated price. So this is the price that when I go and I pick this from this contract, Maximo is going to use. So that steel was $129. If I expand it, I have a few other options. I'm going to let you change the quantity on use. Maybe I want to order 2, but I'm not going to let you change the price on use. So if I'm referencing this contract for $129, that's the price. Okay. Let's look at the PR lines here. This is where the quantity that I needed, the 20, is copied over. Notice it is editable. So now I can go in and I can change this if I needed. I could add more items to it. A slew of ways to pick. I could pick from the contract items, select spare parts, just pick onesies. When running that reorder process, I only did it for one, but if it was your whole storeroom, Maximo does try to consolidate as much as possible. So it wouldn't necessarily just have one line per PR. If I had a bunch of preferred vendors specified on my items, it would consolidate all those. It would consolidate by contract, and then it would consolidate by not having a vendor. Because I don't necessarily have to have a vendor yet at the PR step. I need one when I get to the purchase order. All right, let's go ahead and launch this into workflow. Again, I'm doing this manually just to illustrate for you. However, this could be something that as soon as the reorder was generated, the documents came out, they would be launched into workflow. I would log in, see in my inbox in the morning all of the documents I need to review. So this is now in workflow. If I just come up and I say, let's view the workflow map, mine's really simple. Basically checks and says, is the total cost of the purchase requisition over a certain threshold? If yes, it requires approval by the supervisor. If not, I'm going to go ahead and auto-approve it. I'm going to go to the Start Center. Over here, this is my inbox of assignment. So this is the particular one that I know because it's the time. It's not really 2:27, but my machine time is. So let's go ahead and open that up. I could workflow it right from my Start Center, or I can click on it. I'm going to get this workflow help that explains to what I need to do with workflow. I can choose not to show this anymore. Just uncheck it. Okay, let's look at it. Yes, this is a valid purchase request. I'm going to approve it. Yep, route for approval. Now status is approved. So next step is the purchase order. Lots of ways that I could generate a purchase order from a purchase requisition. One option is right from the select action. I could create a PO. I have the option to auto number here, or if for some reason you already gave a verbal PO number to a supplier, you could type that in. So I'm going to do this. My PO is 1095. Let's move over to the purchase orders, and then I'll mention the other ways that I could have generated a purchase order. So similar to some ERP systems, right from my purchase order tab here, I could say, let's copy purchase requisition line items to a PO. So now what I'm looking at is a list of all purchase rec lines that have not been pushed into a PO yet. I can start consolidating. So let me grab everything by, so let's filter here, by bet. Grab that all. Okay. So now purchase rec 1004 has been closed because all of the line items have been copied over and one PO was generated for me. So that's one option. The other, let's go back to 1095 that I generated from that purchase requisition. I could come, now that I have my purchase order, look at the PO lines. I can start to do some more consolidation. So let's copy PR line items to an existing PO. Same box, I can filter, look at all the line items that don't exist in a PO yet. Let's grab all of these. Okay. Notice I could change my quantity here because on that price contract, I did have that checked where I could change quantity, but I can't change price. Well, if I expand this line open, I have a slew of other information. I can actually see that contract reference. I can see that this is to replenish a storeroom. If this was actually for a direct issue to a work order, that work order information would be filled out. So I have all my cross-reference information if I need to do any research. Okay, just like I had a workflow for the purchase requisition, I could also have a workflow for a purchase order. It could be separate. Let's launch this into workflow. Again, if I view the map, I can see where it is, but I could also view assignments or history. A workflow gives you a way to enforce your business process and also have an audit history of who had the assignments, any comments they put, what actions were taken. So let's view the assignments in this case. I actually have it set up just for demo purposes so I don't have to log out. It's assigning it to myself, but I would see whoever it was assigned to. I can toggle between, so now I can look at the map. The cost was over a certain threshold, so it needs an approval. So that would be in my inbox again on my Start Center. Let's just route it though, save that step, approve it. Okay. Let's see. Contract revision 0. Okay, it's giving me, I'm going to throw these off here. I would need to change the reference. So earlier when I did this purchase requisition, I was referencing a contract that I've since unapproved or done a revision to. So I'm just going to remove these for the demo purposes. Okay. So a lot of checks and balances. So this purchase order is now approved. A few things that I want to point out is one, I have this view related records, and as I progress through my purchasing life cycle, I can see all of the references here in one simple dialog. So if I was using a request for a quotation, I could see that. As I get to the receipts and to the invoices, this will start filling out. So once I get to the invoice step, I'll show you this again, and it will show you all of the related documents that have played a part in this purchasing life cycle. For any of you that haven't seen 7.5 before, who are familiar before, this is new functionality. If for some reason I need to change something on this purchase order, maybe a line needs to be canceled, I need a different quantity, the price has changed, I can do a purchase order revision. And it's very similar to the contract revision functionality. It's going to keep the same PO number, but it's going to increment the revision. I have some different options of what I can allow here. I can set it up where I can change costs or quantities or not. Do I want to place all other activities on hold, meaning while I'm revising this, you can't do receipts and you can't do invoices against it. If I've already done some receipts and invoices, it's locked down more as far as what I can change. Let's go ahead and just change the quantity here. I really needed 25. I could send this through a workflow again. Notice the status is pending revision. This could be within your same workflow, or you could have a different branch in your workflow, how you wanted to handle this. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. There is a dialog. Let's see, I guess I need to save it first. Getting ahead of myself. All right. Let's see, that was 1095. So there's the approved, the pending revision. This is the one I want to approve. Okay. There is a dialog that will show you that revision history. So I can see my original quantity was 20 and I changed it to 25. So for audit purposes, that's all there with the revision numbers, the comment. Let's go now and let's look at the receiving. This has been out there. The vendor has sent it in. I want to receive what I ordered. Notice right here it says receipts are none. As I do my receipt, this can change from partial into complete, and that's how I can easily see that I've matched my receipt to my PO. So what I've received is what I ordered. See, receiving. You'll notice all the applications that I have there in my go-to as well, because I'm an admin user and I have full access. But I would have, or I do have links on my Start Center, shortcuts, and most likely you wouldn't have that all on your list. So now I'm in the receiving app. The receipt number 1095 is the same as the PO number. I can really easily come in and say, let's select ordered items. Okay. Put in any remarks. I could change it. They've really only sent me 20. Save it. Right now my receipts are still none. It's because this particular material, I require an inspection before I can successfully receive it. So right now, it's just in a receiving location. It hasn't gone into my inventory as available. Let's go ahead and inspect it. Everything looks good with those 20. Okay. Receipts are now partial. I can see that here. If I went back to my PO, I would be able to see the receipts are partial. As soon as I receive those other 5 in, I can go ahead and come back and I can receive them. Same thing again. Let's do the inspection. I could reject some notice. That would do a return. Okay, receipts are now complete. I've received everything that I ordered. Just a couple notes here. I won't go into the different alternative scenarios for time. I could come in if I accidentally entered a receipt in error. I could void receipt. That will go ahead and do a transaction to back out the quantity and price, and it will not allow you to include that voided receipt into credit invoices versus if I did a return. I could go ahead and select items for return, and then they could be included within the credit invoice. Something to mention, I only received the quantity that was sent. If for some reason that the vendor sent you more than you ordered, you can put checks into place so you can only over-receive to a certain amount. So, for example, I could put a threshold of I can only receive these deals up to 50% more. I ordered 25 and they sent me 12. or if they sent me 37. As soon as I do 40, I could get an error message thrown, you can't receive all of those, and then I would need to do a return for the extra, which then again, if they invoiced me for it, I could do a credit invoice to get that. All right, so let's move on to the invoice. Let's go to the Start Center though, since I keep using the go-to. And let's go to invoices. So a couple options for how I handle my invoices. One, if anybody has more of the pay on receipt scenario, there is a flag that you could have checked, and then this invoice would already be created. Two, invoices can be specific to a PO. So if your vendors just send you one invoice per PO, that's fine. You can just go ahead and enter the PO information in. And then I can see really easily a snapshot of my matching. I can see the receipts are complete. The total cost is $3,000. They still have not invoiced me for any of it. The other option, though, is if anybody has more of the concept of a centralized invoice, so maybe you've ordered things from the same supplier for multiple sites or multiple warehouses, they send you one centralized invoice somewhere, and you want to be able to just record the invoice in Maximo and then pull in from different POs, you can do that. You would come in and put the company, and then over here on the invoice line, I have the option to copy PO lines. And then what I can see is a snapshot of all of the POs from ATI, and I can see the uninvoiced quantity, cost, and so then I could really easily see what hasn't been matched at going that route as well. Now let's just go back and put in that 1095. Just do one for now. Let's copy those PO lines over. Narrowed it down to just 1095, again, uninvoiced cost. So just like I mentioned, there's a threshold for over-receiving. You can also set up different tolerances for how much overage on the invoice you can go, cost, quantities. That's all set up through security and Maximo. So let's see, 25, 3,225, status is entered. Go ahead and save it. Everything looks good. Invoices are statusable as well, so these could go through a workflow process. I can come in and I can check that it's entered. Now it's approved. And then I can go and it's paid. And this could all be happening through integration back and forth with your financial system as well. So now it's paid. If I come back, I should not have any more uninvoiced total. So the receipts are complete. Nothing's uninvoiced. I have that match. What I purchased is what I received, and what I received and purchased is what I was invoiced for. If for some reason you made a mistake entering the invoice, you entered, the wrong invoice, whatever it may be, there is an invoice reversal process that will back out the line, and then you could enter a new invoice. That was something new in 7.5 as well. So I could come and reverse that invoice. Go ahead. There's an approval process for this as well. If you want to just go ahead and generate that approved reversal, you could, or there could be a pending reversal where it could go through a workflow. So the reversed invoice is 1071. If I come look at that, it should have backed out that 25, which it did. It's pending reversal, so it needs to be approved. If I come in and view my related records, I should get a pretty good snapshot like I mentioned. The PR, the receipt, so I can see that whole supply chain 360 view. All right, let me do a time check here. How am I doing, Tina?
You're good.
All right, I want to go through 2 more scenarios then, and these are more inventory, putting my inventory hat on. I'm going to use inventory usage to go and first go and look at all my reservations. I'm going to start pulling some materials for a job. I'm going to throw them on a pallet, and I'm going to mark that they're staged. And then when those materials are actually picked up through one quick button, I can mark that they're issued. They'll be allocated to the work order or wherever I'm issuing them to, and they'll reduce my inventory balance and cost. Second scenario that I'm going to do is the shipment receiving. This is where if you're transferring between storerooms and you might require an intermediary location like a transit or a courier, you can track that whole process. All right. Do a time check. All right. 5 minutes. Yep, I should be able to get through and then open for questions. Okay. So inventory usage, statusable document that you can use for issuing, returning, and transferring materials. You can do one for each type. You could have a mixed bag. There's some automation that could occur if you want to have it enabled. When I have reservations on a work order, I could automatically have an entered inventory usage record already created. That way it would save me the first step of creating one. I would still need to mark when it was issued or if it was staged, which would adjust balances, but the initial step would be saved. Let's create a new inventory usage. Say, I believe my work order was 1014. Let's go ahead. Storeroom is from. Usage type, I'm actually doing an issue, but like I said, you could use the same record for multiple. So I could do really all of my work for the day. I could put my issues, if anybody returned anything. I could mark those all in one document. It can be issues across work orders. It doesn't have to be for the same one. I can use this one document. Notice the status is entered. Go ahead and select reserved items. This is going to be that reservation dialog like I showed you within inventory. A common theme within Maximo, we don't make you have to go to other places to see the information that you need. Just like I could view item availability from the work order, I could view it from inventory, I can view it from here. Same thing with the reservations. So whatever hat you're wearing, if you need to see the information, it's there. And I could filter by work order number if I know I'm pulling parts for a certain work order. That wasn't my work order number. Or I could come, let's do that date again since I know I said 10/6. Required date, my work order was 1450. I'm going to stage both of these materials. Quantity 1, default bin that I'm pulling it from. Status is still entered. I have not changed anything yet. So I could sit this document down, go to lunch, come back, nothing's been adjusted. However, if I pull this, I put it on a pallet, I put it in a staging bin, wherever, I just need to click this button. Now I'm going to set it to staged. I can have a default stage bin, either in the current bin, or I could type in where I'm staged it. Okay. Status is going to change from entered to staged. If I come now and I look at that item availability, I can actually see now that there's some staged, quantity stage 1. If I went and I was looking from the inventory perspective, I could also see here that I have some staged quantity. And if I scroll down and looked at my bin information, I would see that staging location in my bin for the quantity that's there, as well as the date that occurred. Now, all I need to do once the tech picks up these parts and I want to issue them out to the work order is come in and complete this. So status is now changing from staged to complete. Let's open up this line, more information. I can see all of my research. Work order 1450, that's where the reservation came to. Just go look at that work order. Let's look at now, instead of the plans where I planned what I needed and created those reservations, let's look at the actuals. If I look at my actual materials, there's the 2 materials that I just issued. This is not the only way that I could get this on the work order. If you allow your techs to record what they use, I could have selected the reserved items, picked them, and issued them going this method as well. Okay, one more scenario, and then I will open for questions. Let's do another inventory usage. This time, I'm transferring to, we'll just say the packing storeroom. Let's create it as a type of transfer. Let's see. Just pick one. Because this is a lotted item, this is my seal, it expires, I'm going to need a lot and a bin. All right. What is it telling me here? The lot do not match the lot. Okay. Now they do. So right now I'm transferring, let's transfer a few. I'm transferring from the central to the packing storeroom, transferring 5 of these seals. I'm just going to come up and I'm going to set this to ship because I physically sent this on UPS. And this is going to give me the ability to come and to, let's see, auto split, okay. I didn't have enough in one bin, so it needs to pull some from others. The original. I don't think I have enough to be able to ship 5. Let's just do 1. I'm trying to ship more than I can. Okay. Carrier is UPS. If I have the packing slip number, I could go ahead and email the storeroom at this receiving location if I wanted, or you could have Maximo easily send an email. It could be on their start center, all of the different ways that you can do things. So now the status is going to go from entered to shipped. Receipts are none. Notice that was the conditional field. I didn't see that before. What I need to do is go into the shipment receiving. I'm changing hats now. I'm the other storeroom clerk. I've received this transfer in. I want to come and I want to receive it. This application looks very similar to receiving, but instead of receiving against the PO, you're receiving against the shipment. You can toggle between the 2 applications with a quick button because we do recognize that they're going to be flipping between these 2 and when they're doing all the receipts. And let's just use the advanced search to put in that packing slip number. I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see. Let's grab this one. Looks very similar. I can select shipped items. I can require inspections. So this particular one is requiring an inspection. So just like before, I can do my inspection. Let me save it here. Change the inspection status. Looks good. I'm not going to reject any. Complete. So now I've successfully transferred it from the central to the packing storeroom, but I was able to track that intermediary location when I actually shipped it. You do not have to use this inventory usage and shipment receiving like this. If you're just shipping it maybe to another, or transferring it, pardon me, to another store within the same site, or just putting it on somebody's truck, whatever it is. Really the shipment receiving is if you are using some location like a courier and you want to be able to track it. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the lines for questions.
All right, I will open phone lines, and Donna is working on a few that have come in over the chat as well. So, Donna, I don't know if you want to ask any additional questions or have anyone expand on that, but give me just a second.
All participants are now in interactive talk mode.
Okay, the phone lines are open, so if you have a question, if you can just state your name and company.
Hi, this is Ryan Mitternack from MEG, and I was just chatting over online, and I was just curious if there's any documentation or IBM articles or links that can help us understand the distributed costs a little bit better and where it's used, how it's used, and what the appropriate workflow should be.
Yeah, I can send you some information about distributing costs.
Okay.
And Lacey, I'll send you Ryan's information.
Okay, yeah, I only had his first name down. It's a perfect name.
Yeah, I've got it. Any other questions?
Hey, my name is Arif. I'm from ADM. I have a question about the bracketed pricing on contracts. Do you have a way to handle it in Maximo?
I missed the first. What pricing?
Bracketed pricing.
I still can't understand. Sorry.
Prices on a specific brackets on quantities. If you buy specific quantities, you get specific prices.
No, Donna, is there anything that you've come across with that before? The contracts in Maximo are efficient, but they're pretty straightforward as far as what you can do.
Yeah, so when you set up, if you want to set up brackets, they actually can be set up as different line items on the contract. So, and then using a standard packaging quantity to ensure that you're hitting those brackets. But it's kind of a make do. It's not the official bracketing functionality.
Okay, thanks.
This is Ryan Mitternack again from MEG. I'm just curious, so if we have a PO open, we go to a PO line and we use contract items, if in our contract it specifies one quantity of one, is there a way on the contract items to allow editing that, or do you actually have to add the PO lines before you can edit that quantity?
Edit it on the PO line itself?
So not on the PO line itself, but if you're going to go in and select a whole bunch of contract items, do you have to add those before you can change the quantity, or can you actually do it in the contract items dialog?
You need to, I believe, do it after you've added them, because that dialog is just a snapshot of what's available on the contract.
Okay, thank you.
And remember, if you want to be able to edit the quantities, there's a checkbox on the contract line items to allow you to edit it.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll enforce what's on the contract.
Hi, this is Pankaj from Wipro. I just wanted to understand that against contract we have something called committed cost or uncommitted cost. So when does this committed cost get populated?
So committed cost is more of an approved PO versus a waiting for approval. So have you gone through the blanket contracts before? Are you talking about that dialogue that you can look at and it will show you?
That's right, the dialogue which says you released cost or something?
Yeah. Yep. It's if you have an approved purchase order. At that point it's committed.
Oh, approved purchase order is committed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Try it out. Go ahead and approve it. You should see the change.
Okay. And you talked about this hard reservation and soft reservation. So in case on a work order we identify that the reservation type is automatic and Maximo derives it to be a soft reservation to start with, would Maximo automatically change it to hard reservation as the time passes through and my required date approaches?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a cron task that runs.
Okay, there's a cron task that runs on that. Okay. I also have a question on procurement of labor. In case we need to procure any external labor, then what is the process of that?
Well, there's a couple ways to go about that. One is if it's more of just like a $1,000 bucket service item, you can do it like that. And the other is you can actually have outside labor set up, and then you can have labor rate contracts. Are you familiar with those?
Yes, I'm familiar with labor rate contract, but I was trying to do it in one of my applications, and it was actually giving me an error that when I approve this external labor on the work order, then it gives me an error that I cannot approve it because a purchase order is required. And when I go into the purchase order application, there's no way to put in a labor record there.
Okay, well, do you want to go ahead and send me an email after this, or Tina an email with the problem, and I'll look at it for you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we may have time just for one more question.
Hi, this is Scott from Meg under Kendra Howard's login. You indicated earlier that for reorder points and reordering inventory, the ROP and the EOQ can be calculated. Is that functionality built into Maximo right now, or is that through a product like, I believe, something called Insights that IBM's working on?
No, that's built in now. There's 2 reports that you can use. There's a reorder point report and an EOQ report, and we'll suggest to you what they should be. On that report on the bottom, there's actually a link that if you wanted to click it, you could update the database. So I believe, Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 2 versions of the report. There's one that will just run it, and update it maybe, and one that won't. But there is a link where you could update it if you want. But we just suggest that you look at the report and manually make the changes.
Yeah, that's correct. The calculations are actually running in the report itself. We did it that way so that if people wanted to edit those calculations, you can edit those reports and edit the EOQ calculation to suit whatever calculation you want. We're sort of using a standard EOQ.
And I should say there's a lot of people that don't necessarily use the reorder point EOQ. They want to reorder up to the max. And so exactly what Donna said, you can modify the logic in that report to make the EOQs to order up to the max.
Okay, yeah, we used to do that, and then when we went to Maximo, we actually changed our logic to ROP and EOQ to use that functionality.
Yep.
So the one report's called Inventory EOQ Analysis, and the other one is, I assume, an ROP analysis?
Yep, Inventory ROP Analysis. But there is one report for each, but there's a link in the bottom of it that you could click if you really wanted to update the records. But like I said, we suggest that you just use the report as reference and then tweak them.
Perfect, thank you.
There's also another one for ABC and cycle counting analysis, just as an FYI.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I've seen those ones too. Thank you.
So for anybody that's interested, there is a report library out there that we give you a whole listing of all of the out-of-the-box reports, and there's a sample of them as well. It's if you Google, I believe, Maximo 7.5 report library, the hit that you get should show that, and there should be a disk with all of our sample reports.
Okay, well, I have us at 4 after now, so thank you, everyone, for joining. Donna, Lacey, any final words or comments?
Nope, thanks, everybody, and have a good weekend.
Yes, thank you, Lacey. That was very good. And thanks, everyone, for attending. And I will be getting out the recording as well as the presentation. And so let me know if you have any questions. I can get those on to Lacey and Donna. And have a great weekend, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.